Today I'm going to be showing you how to do some hand quilting. You have your back fabric that is bigger than your top fabric, right side down. If you're doing anything bigger than something small that you can lay on top of a desk or a tabletop, then you are going to tape down each of the four corners. Your batting is also going to be as large as your backing. If not, you can just make sure that it is 5 inches bigger around than your top piece. For this purpose, it is just big enough because then I can go back and I can trim it up to the size I need it. So backing, right side down, batting, and then top, right side up. I got into hand quilting a lot, and I bought a bunch of these different stencils. There is a wrong and a right side of the stencil. There's a right side and a wrong side. So you want to make sure that the wrong side is the side that almost feels like sandpaper, so that when you put it against your fabric, it holds it into place and doesn't scoot around. So I chose this little stencil, and I went ahead and I used my pencil that my husband made me because it's nice and fat at the bottom and has a nice little tip. So I went and just put it wherever I wanted it and did a once around in the lines. And this area here is a big dot. So what I did was I just put a simple dot in each of those, because I can go back after it's hand quilted. I can go back and add some embellishments to that area, and it'll make it really cute with some sequins and some small beads or something. If you are wanting to do lines, I suggest to invest in a ruler that has different lines. You don't have to have a gigantic one, because smaller is just as good. If you're going to draw lines, I suggest you, before you draw your lines and sandwich everything together, find where that middle line is in your quilt on both or all four sides. Fold it in half, either make a little clip or put a little marker of some sort. That will allow you to use this straight edge and that marker line to line it up and use it to do that. Then you can move to the next line and so on and so forth. So most of your lines, well, this doesn't have any breaks in it, so it's hard to see where your line is. But for this, you can see that you're getting lines that are somewhat straight. I then go ahead and pin it, making sure that the area that I'm going to be quilting is not pinned. Something this small, you would only need a few pieces. And invest in a good hoop. This hoop has a channel. I don't know if you can see that. So that when you put it together, it locks into place. This is good for this project. I don't suggest you getting a huge hoop, because it's hard to hold as you're doing things. So this solid circle goes right under, and you can see where it's at. And then this one, you're going to have this hoop part away from you. And you're just going to place it down, and you're going to push it down until it locks into place. And once it does, then you go ahead and you tighten it. Alright, so I threaded my needle. My needle that I have, that I like working with when hand quilting, are the smallest needles possible. These are in between, quilters in betweens. And these are size 10. And I've tried using bigger needles and they suck because they're just so bulky that you can't get through your fabric. Alright, so you're going to have the end of your thread and you're going to wrap it around 2 times. And then you're going to pull it through, work it to the end, pull it through so you have a nice little knot. Can you see that? Nice little knot. Pardon my nails. I haven't been out much lately. So, now that your needle is ready to go. It's not focusing. Crazy phone's not focusing. Okay, so now that your needle is threaded, you're checking your piece for that sound. You want it taut so that it's not going to be a loose mess. You're going to go ahead and check the back side. Make sure everything is smooth. That is a good backing. If it's too tight for you, you can undo it just a little bit and make it a little less springy. Okay, so what I do, if you aren't a person that can follow without lines, then go ahead and take your pencil or whatever you use to transfer your picture. My advice is I would not use friction pins. They do not wash out. They leave marks. I start in a certain spot. Okay, I'm going to be doing this leaf here. So I'm going to start over here, go in between all the layers. My finger is on the back, so I can feel if my needle has gone through all layers. I then come up right where I want to start, and if you can see that, that is where my thread is. And you just give it a gentle snug and it goes right in. If any of the little tail is still out, go right here and just wiggle it back and forth and it will hide. You're wanting to hide your thread. Then you go behind the stitch right here. You go in and I have my finger again on the back. So I go down through the fabric and I touch my finger. I don't poke my finger, I touch my finger. Then I make a small bite and see how my needle came up just a little. And then I take another bite and I go down and I touch my finger and I come back up just so you can see the tip. And I go down and I come up. The key is to do 10 per needle. That's why they're called size 10, because you're supposed to get 10 bites out of one needle. I only like to do a few at a time. That way I can pull it through and make sure everything is good. And then I go right down next to where I came up. And I touch my finger and I come back up. Touch my finger, come back up. And I keep repeating that process until I get to the end. Now that I've gotten to the end of my leaf, I take my thread and I wrap my needle around it twice. Again, from back to front. Wrap it around it twice while still holding that thread. And then I slowly work that down until it's about to there. Then I go in and I come back up and I snug it. And when you hear that little pop, that means that little has been hidden. Then I make another knot to begin before I even cut off. Then I get my little, and I cut right about there. So now I'm ready to go to the next one because I have made my knot for my next set of petals. So I suggest you investing in a good hoop, some pins or some safety pins. The curved safety pins work the best if you're doing that. And here's my back stitches. I haven't done this in a while, so they're a little off, but they're a lot better than I've seen lately. And then once you wash your project, then all of your lines and everything come out, and it crinkles up and it makes a really pretty design. Also, you need something to draw your design. Invest in some really cool stencils. You can buy a few online. You need some scissors, and you can either use all-purpose thread. I have a bunch of thread up here from my long arm quilt machine, so I have a lot to choose from in terms of that. But I use mercerized cotton, and if it's too dry for you, then you can buy some beeswax that you condition your thread, and it's easier to pull through. If any of you don't like getting on the ground and pinning all your stuff and making sure everything is tight and ready to go, I do have a long arm quilting business, and I offer basting for anybody that would like to hand quilt their own projects. So it makes it a lot easier for you to just get your quilt back and throw it in a hoop and get ready to go. Remember, it's not about perfection. It's about learning as you go. And even if your project doesn't look the way you want it to look this time around, it's always good to practice on some smaller items before you go ahead and bite into a gigantic quilt. If you have any other questions, feel free to message me. And thank you.